19th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, I'm going to move to public meetings. We actually have two public meetings tonight. Thank you all for coming out to be here tonight. If you'd like to speak, if you fill out the orange form, then I'll be sure and give you a call when it's time. The speakers list will follow the way that people have signed in. We're here to listen to your comments, suggestions, and concerns. In both cases, this is not the first meeting. We will not be making decisions on either one of these items tonight. This is the opportunity to hear from our public and our residents, and then we will be back. And when we finish each portion of the meeting, I will let you know the dates that we actually will be back here to make a decision. That being said, each speaker will be provided 5 minutes. If you're in the middle of your sentence, we certainly won't cut you off, but I'll give you a high sign to notify you that it's time to wrap up. Most importantly, we are a character community. We deal with courtesy and respect, as seen in the banners around our council chambers here. We treat people with fairness, and we ask the same of each speaker who comes to the microphone. Those in the audience, I know that both issues are very emotional for people, but I would kindly ask that you refrain from cheering or applauding, as we want to welcome all of our opinions and comments and concerns. So with that, we look forward to hearing from you. The first public meeting will be 18725 McCowan Road, Overholt Pit. And we will hear from our residents at this point. You could, Mr. Clerk, if you have a list, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a number of speakers here, and they're in no particular order. The first one is Michael Kraemer.
Welcome. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. I kind of have a two-part question. One is with regards to start times and the enforcement of start times. The best I can get through the bylaw is 7 o'clock is the accepted norm. Strata Crush continually starts at 4 a.m. Despite numerous calls to the pit, the answer I get is everybody's got to make a living. So do I. I have to drive to the city after being woken up every morning by them hammering and banging, and I'm directly adjacent from the Overholt pit. So there's no escaping the noise. And I don't think 4 a.m., I'm not talking about a 6:55. I'm not out there with my watch doing this. 10 after 4, you can set your watch to it. They go clanging by my house. The other biggest problem we have, particularly with the independents, it's easy to call Strata if their boys are out of line, but speed enforcement. These guys are blowing by the houses 120, 130, like vagrant disregard. This isn't me standing there going, oh my goodness, was he doing 58 and 60? It's a very largely posted 50 zone, and there's absolutely no respect for that speed limit from either of the operators down there. I've called the guy from Strata, he talks to his drivers. I've called other independents from the city, getting various results. Usually it's 2 or 3 days of them behaving, and then it's all said and done again. So I want to know, with all the additional traffic that we're going to have, particularly I'm guessing it's coming from the south with all the stop signs that just went in, what we're going to do to alleviate A, the congestion, and B, the safety for people trying to get in and out of their driveways, as these guys are very heavy and they're not respecting the law.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure that I can get answers for you right now, but we have your information and we can certainly be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through Madam Mayor, next speaker is Robert Pratt.
Good evening.
Evening. Basically, same thing the gentleman was saying. Actually, I want to know what's going to be done actually with the speed limit enforcement. For starters, we live actually 2 houses east of McCowan Side Road on Davis Drive itself. And in the last 2 years, there's already been, I believe, 3 fatalities due to dump trucks along Davis Drive. So outside of actually cutting my corner shortening my driveway and trying to slow the trucks down coming down the hill because they pass my house easily doing 120, 140 now coming down the hill. There's been numerous accidents. There was just another accident at that intersection 2 days ago. So I want to know what the council, what the municipality is actually going to do. And exactly like he says, how's it getting reinforced? Because we can't rely on just York Region to actually police we don't have the manpower. So what is the municipality actually going to do to actually make the enforcement happen? And will it get followed through? And is this going to happen or not? Because basically smoke up our butts isn't really going to call for it. And that's what usually happens. It's exactly like he's saying, you call Strata, they don't care. The new stop signs are already been put in at Harold Road, just north of us, across on the north side of the tracks. And that stop sign, I've seen cars go through that stop sign not caring. So I've got kids. We've been there 18 years. No problems outside of the accidents and the dump trucks now that we have issues with trying to get in and out of our driveway. I've had a friend almost killed in front of my driveway due to a dump truck. So what's actually going to happen?
So what I can say to you is when we make our decision, there will be provisions based on what we're hearing here tonight. So and it's not an answer that we can give you today. It's part of what our report will be on the date when we are to make a decision.
Just a quick, is that intersection actually going to be updated if that's the intent of actually this being opened for them to do this?
I believe so.
Okay, is there anywhere that it states what's going to be happening with the properties adjacent to the corners of how they're going to do it? Is there anything that's actually on paper?
Council are not familiar with that at this point. That's perhaps something we can take offline with you, and if it's an issue for your neighbors as well, which I suspect it is, then we'll address that at the time of the report. Yes, Mr. Valchek.
Madam Mayor, just to, if this is helpful, I just wanted to let you remind council and the members of the public that are here that we were planning to do a little bit of a presentation overview of the memo and of some of the sort of comments that we heard at the last meeting, as well as some of the planned responses and proposals to that. So
Okay.
it may address some of the comments coming up this evening, but to the degree that it doesn't, we'll certainly be tracking those and making sure that we get answers to all of those questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, next speaker is Mandy Goreski.
Can we propose to do that first before we speak? Because the board might have already addressed that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We can do that. Okay. We'll take a break from presentations. We'll have staff present. Yes, Mr. Molinari, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have Katrina McCullough here from GHD, who's the project planner on this particular file and has done a lot of work with respect to the questions that were received at the last council meeting on this topic. And she can provide an overview and walk through some of those concerns and just to refresh council's memory on what was discussed that night and some of their answers to the questions.
Thank you. So the presentation that's up here now is the presentation that I gave in November. So I'm happy to walk through that again, or I can speak more towards the comments that were received and provide a summary of those responses if that's more appropriate. Okay. So there is a memorandum attached to the agenda this evening that provides a full, complete, detailed comment response table. So I won't go through all of those in detail because they are available in that comment response table. But first of all, I did want to say thank you for the opportunity to respond to these comments raised by members of the public and councillors. We appreciate the interest that the community has taken to ensure that the impacts are any associated impacts associated with this operation are minimized. And speaking on behalf of Rice Group, I know it's important to them as well that this site is operated in a way that's respectful to their neighbors and committed to working collaboratively with the town and the community to ensure that happens. So just touching on the comments were really grouped into 5 categories. Actually, if you don't mind going back a page to just right there, I'll just speak to those 5 categories. There were several comments received, generally grouped into these 5 categories in order related to trucks and traffic, which again we've already heard about this evening. Fill and fill management, so the quality of the soil, the frequency of sampling, those types of questions, and quality of groundwater. Impacts related to noise, dust, and odor, as well as, what is the project need or justification? Why does the town have a fill management bylaw and the background behind that? And finally, other comments primarily related to the qualifications of GHD and the authors of the fill management plan. So just speaking in terms of trucks and traffic, following the meeting, there was further discussions with town staff, and Rice Group has agreed to a 25% reduction in the maximum number of trips per day. So we heard a lot of concern about that 200 trucks per day, and so Rice Group has agreed to reduce that to 150 trucks per day as a maximum upper limit. And again, there was a question about is that maximum a maximum per day, or is it an average? For example, you could have more one day and less one day. It does represent a maximum. So on any given day, certainly not on every day, but on any given day, there would be no more than 150 trucks per day. As part of that as well, again, picking up on those concerns related to speed, there's been discussions about including or installing those flashing your speed signs south of the site entrance on both directions. Again, it is just one measure that can be a deterrent for speeding. And as well, there will be CCTV cameras actually pointed at the site entrance, but pointed onto McCowan Road. So again, that will help the town if there are concerns raised about trucks from or going to this site speeding or behaving improperly, then the town would have access to those those video records. Question today, we talked last time about the 4-way stop at Harold and McCowan, and so that is at the town's request. York Region has now installed that 4-way stop, and answering the question about the intersection of Davis and McCowan, there is improvements that are proposed at that intersection. So a left turn lane at that intersection is proposed as part of this fill management plan as well. In terms of the fill and fill management, most of the comments were related to, again, the sampling, the confirmatory sampling of what happens once fill arrives at the site. One thing that I just wanted to highlight there is that I think what gets lost in that conversation is that by the time the fill actually arrives on the site, it would have had a full characterization. So the source site, where the fill is coming from, they have to do a full characterization sent to the laboratory prepared by a qualified professional. That characterization gets sent to GHD's QP, qualified person who reviews it and approves it. So before any fill even arrives on the site, GHD and Rice Group will know the full, will have a full understanding of its quality and whether it's even appropriate at the site. And then the confirmatory sampling takes place from there on site again to confirm what is documented in those in that the source site reports. We did receive a question. There is new excess soil regulations in Ontario coming into effect, which we are well aware of. They're coming into effect in the summertime, and the testing and sampling protocol that's included in the fill management plan does comply with those new regulations. In terms of noise, dust, and odor, hours of operation, there was a question about hours of operation earlier. The hours of operation start at 7 a.m., so no earlier than 7 a.m. And of course, the town has the authority to enforce that as needed, but it is 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the ability for trucks to come in up to 6 p.m. if needed, if there's traffic or other issues on the way to site. Project need and justification. I think that's better spoken to by members of your staff, but I do understand that really the purpose of the fill management bylaw is to ensure that operations like this are done in a manner that's respectful of the environment and its neighbors, and certainly our aim has been to prepare the fill management plan with that spirit and intent in mind. So I will leave it at that. Leave it at that for now and welcome any other questions.
Thank you. Are there questions? Go ahead, Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. Number 6 on the comments spoke about private well sampling, and I see that private wells have been sampled in advance, but it doesn't look like there would be more private well sampling. I see that wells on site would be sampled. Is there a way to add additional private well sampling? If we took the initial, then wouldn't we want to be checking it throughout the process? Is that contemplated in the plan?
It is possible, but it's not contemplated at this time. If you look at our on-site, really we focused on the on-site well network because they provide that boundary. We wanted to, if there were any concerns or issues, we wanted to pick them up on-site before any concerns migrated off-site. So that's why we focused on that on the on-site well monitoring network.
So what was the purpose of the private well sampling in advance then?
It would be to collect a baseline so
Okay.
that if there were any concerns raised, if someone did come to us or the town with concerns about a change in their in their water quality, that we would have a baseline so that we could go back and do the sampling if and when needed, if concerns were raised.
So the cost of that would be borne by the residents to have their wells tested if they felt something had changed?
The cost of the initial well sampling was borne by Rice Group. So, I mean, we'd have to, I can't speak for Rice Group whether
Right.
they would bear the cost of that during, if there was sampling needed during operation.
Okay, thank you.
But we can get back to you.
Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Staff?
So, Madam Mayor, that provides a bit of an overview of the memo that was provided for today's meeting, and certainly for any members of the public that haven't seen it or haven't accessed it. It is posted and available. There's lots of information in there, but at this point, it would be appropriate to hear from any other members that wish to make comments for further consideration. Madam Mayor, I'm advised by the clerk that additional paper copies are also being printed as we speak, so they'll be available for folks here if they wish to take a paper copy.
Okay, thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, we'll go back to the speakers list, and I believe we left off with Mandy Goreski.
Welcome, good to have you with us today.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on response to the memorandum that we had emailed to us. On page 4, section A, number 7, it was concerns about truck volume causing major congestion. I believe that the report is only taking into account the trucks that are being generated by Rise Commercial Group. As all the residents know, the strata aggregates operate as well in that on that area, and council doesn't have the information for the amount of trucks that strata have on the road at this time, due to the fact that it's monitored by the Ministry of Environment and not by council. So I think before you make a decision, you have to really find out the true facts of how many vehicles are on the road at that time. That was just one point I had to make about that. And also on page 8, section C, number 9, concerns about noise. On the memorandum stated that site will implement an administrative control to completely restrict banging on tailgates by any vehicle entering within the site and within the site. My response is that if there's any complaints from residents of non-compliance, how can residents accurately obtain proof of the offender and documented it to bylaw officials if it happens within site boundaries? We're not able to go on site to find out which offender is making the noise. So for us, it's a very difficult situation to report something that we do not have any any access to find out which person is making the offence. Just for example, and also I understand a topsoil beam is going to be implemented on the site. In my reference, we live north of the Mount Albert pit and Dufferin Construction, and there is a huge beam there that's in place at the moment. And we live approximately 2 kilometers north of the site, and we can still hear the noises from these businesses as if it's right in our back door. So I don't believe that the beam's going to be very effective in the area. And also on looking at the memorandum, there's no mention to safety of pedestrian access to the streets. There's no adequate lighting on the streets, there's no sidewalks, and my concern is if you're walking or walking your dog or your children, with that amount of trucks on the roads each day, it's a recipe for disaster. So those are my points that I have at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Diana Lumsden.
Hi, thank you.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking Appendix 1.6 on page 8. There was a comment, somebody wondered about load restriction bylaws, a 5-ton weight limit. And the response talked about York Region determined that McCowan Road between Mount Albert Road and Ravenshoe no longer required load restrictions. And York Region Council report would be added as an attachment to this fill management plan. Why is this relevant to what we're talking about here? McCowan Road between Mount Albert Road and Ravenshoe is not where the Overholt pit is or where this truck traffic will be. So I wondered why that was included as a response to the comment.
We'll make a note of your question and get an answer.
Okay. I've been to some of these meetings, and it seemed to a point being made under fill and management that the final design topography must closely match the pre-extraction topography. And I'm wondering, why must it be that? Far more trucks will be required if it's going to come from the fields to the east are quite low and flat, and up to McCowan Road, there's quite a rise. There's a big hole in the bottom of where the pit is, and those slopey finished hills down to that hole. Why does the whole site have to be filled up to the level of the Mount Albert Road? At the very least, fill the hole in the bottom and leave that level with the fields that are now being used for agriculture. Would that be a possibility? That way nobody really gets what they want, and we can all go away not happy, rather than the race group and those people getting everything they want. Is there any public money being spent on this endeavor? If the intersection at Davis Drive and McCowan is to be modified, who's paying for that? Who paid for the four-way stop to go in at Harold Road and McCowan? Is that public money as well? If this plan goes ahead, as we have seen it suggested, the Overholt trucks will be going south to Davis Drive. Does that mean that Strata is going to send all of their trucks north through Holt? Currently, Strata goes north and south when they leave. If there's more truck congestion, is Strata going up and into Holt and then making congestion at that busy intersection that does not have traffic lights? And I guess a comment when we had the woman who talked about just the overview there, if it has been agreed that there's going to be a 25% reduction of trucks per day, that just means we're going to have more years of seeing this going on in our neighborhood. I mean, I don't want all this truck traffic anyway, but if you're going to reduce the number of trucks a day, it'll go on for longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Next speaker is Alexis Kidd.
Welcome. Good to have you with us this evening.
Hi, thank you. Hi. All right. I have a petition signed here by, I'd say, the majority of the residents from Mount Albert Side Road and Davis Drive. We do not want this. We have come together. We have signed a petition. We do not want this. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Next speaker is Jonathan Arnold.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. Council, Mayor, thank you very much. So I've done a lot of contemplating on this because, as I mentioned in the last meeting, my house is directly across the street from the pit. So it impacts us in a really intimate way. And one of the most intimate things that I can relate to you as a father of two children is me standing at the end of my driveway with my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old waiting for our school bus. And currently being afraid to stand there with the amount of truck traffic we have. We pick routes on our street where we can avoid the truck traffic now. With this proposed pit, there's no escaping the traffic. There's no escaping the danger that is outside our door. And that's not an exaggeration. That is literally what we are living with and what we are going to be compounding greatly. We as a community can't do anything about the Preston family selling the pit to Constrata Aggregate, which is one of the biggest development companies that we have in Ontario. We can't do anything about that. But changing 150 to 200 trucks a day in our neighborhood, we can stand up and unite against that. And I think we've done a fairly good job thus far, being communicative and respectful to the process, but also engaging the fact that the amount of truck and traffic we're going to see on our road is unacceptable. I want to have those experiences with my children. I want to play in our front yard. We have a beautiful silver maple there with a tree swing. We play. And there's times where we go inside because the dust is too much from being kicked up. A sweet streaker is not going to help that. Furthermore, I had a good look at the pit just today. And there is one big hole. And then there's a huge field, probably comprised of 8 to 20 acres, dependent, of flat farmable land. So the point that was brought up earlier, let's just fill the little hole. Literally, we could do that in a year. It would reduce the amount of traffic by half, at least, or more, and it would be farmable land. Lastly, when I was at the last council meeting, I took the opportunity to speak with Mike Rice in the parking lot, and I asked him, at what point does you collecting more money than you can spend in your lifetime supersede the value of your community? And he responded to me with, well, do you live in a house? And I said, yes, I do live in a house. He said, well, we need to build houses. And we do need to build houses. But the fact of the matter is the houses we built are unaffordable. We literally have a housing crisis. So we're going to go and we're going to build houses that people can't afford. Those houses are going to put a sewage plant into Lake Simcoe, which has not been approved by the Chippewa Nation, who is currently on a water boiling advisory. We're going to improve farmland when we don't need more farmland. And it's been proven that the farmland is compounding the health of our lake. So at what point are the systems that we have in place tearing apart our communities, building houses that people can't afford, pumping sewage into our lake, and replenishing farmland that is basically grown with poison that doesn't only pollute our lake, but pollutes our families and our agriculture industry? This is how broken our... Sorry, is that gentleman sleeping? Sorry, am I boring you, sir? Thank you. Sorry. The whole process, our whole political landscape is broken. We know that. We're divisive. We actually have a corporation that wants to bring soil into our farm fields and has to plant people into the last meeting to show some kind of support, because there's no good reason to fill this pit. I can't think of one other than it makes Mike Rice rich, the Rice Group rich, and it probably kicks back to council or the homeowner or whatever else it may be. We're going to have to pay our tax dollars to fix the road. We're going to have to spend our tax dollars to put the turning lane in. Everything about this is backwards. And it's really hard to sit there when you're a property owner and you've invested in a certain lifestyle for your children, and it's all going to be washed away because someone wants to fill a hole that nobody cares about. So if you can tell me why we need to fill this hole, I would love to hear it, because when I go to the grocery store, I see lots of food. I don't think anyone missed dinner today. And I'm just curious as to what the real purpose is. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. And it worries me, because this is a great opportunity for us to stand up as a group and say, we put the people that voted us into council first over corporate interests. This is a great opportunity to look at our house in crisis and say, maybe the housing we're building doesn't work. Maybe we should build net zero housing. Maybe we should build carbon neutral housing. Maybe we should look at solutions for our sewage other than pumping it into our lake. This is allowing the same corporations to make the same mistakes and profit off us as people. And personally, it's exhausting. I don't know how else to describe it. And when it happens in your backyard, it becomes very, very apparent. So I don't know if any of you have visited the site yet, have looked at the pit site. But if you look right across the street to the south, and my beautiful wife, Alexis, sent you some pictures today that we took, the farmland right across the street on the other side of Mill Road is far more hilly, far less farmable, and it sits there vacant. And no one cares. So what are we accomplishing here other than moving a whole bunch of dirt, disrupting a community of people that have chosen a rural neighborhood that want peace and quiet to make someone rich? You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and you should be able to clap for your community as well. When you say that we're treating this event like a sporting event, we're supporting our community members. That's what we're doing. It's not easy to stand up here for everybody. So when we clap for each other, that's not a sporting event. That's a community standing together against corporate greed that slowly erodes the morals of our council to get what they want. And it's time to say enough is enough. And to be perfectly honest, I think this is a waste of council's time. As I just described, we have a housing problem.
Could you wrap up, please?
Yes, thank you. Is my 5 minutes done?
You're about 8, but I have let you go. So please.
Well, I took
please
some of
wrap up.
Alexis's time.
Okay.
You have better things to do than enrich Mike Rice and the Rice Group. Let's worry about housing. Let's worry about safety. And let's put people before corporate values. Thank you. I apologize for going over time. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Scott and Janet Ray.
I have a whole list.
We're anxious to hear. I'll give you the sign at 5 minutes or 6 as I do if you're in the middle of a sentence. And if we're here for the evening, if there's more that you haven't said that you want to come back, then we're okay with that.
Every resident has hundreds of concerns. I mean, from having the windows closed all summer because of the noise of the trucks and the dust, which is trivial. What you're doing is torturing the people that live on Albert Side Road. I don't know who negotiated the lack of access from Mount Albert, because surely to goodness, they could have rented an access road to the back of this land and lived in the Bahamas for 8 years on the proceeds and come up the back way. Why they have to torture everybody on Mount Albert Side Road, God knows. Not only that, the visibility on Mount Albert Side Road is treacherous. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. I mean, you just can't see, what's over the next hill. I mean, there's a million problems on Mount Albert Side Road. And I won't bother you. I'm sure that if you drove down there, you would see. I mean, just tonight we see, oh yes, they put a stop sign at Green Lane. But 20 feet before that stop line, there's an arrow with indicating it's a straight through road. I mean, who paid attention to that? A straight through road, and then there's a stop sign 20 feet further on. It's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. It's just getting heavier and heavier. I mean, this is a recreation area. We have a dog park. There was 150 people there last weekend at the dog park. It's just totally unsuitable to bring that many trucks, diesel trucks, up that road. The road isn't built for it. It's dangerous as hell. It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. I mean, I don't know how many times I've almost got killed coming out of my driveway. I mean, there's just oodles of things that all the residents could suggest, but it's just a wrong decision to do this. I mean, I do agree that we should have productive land, restore it to productive land. I do agree, but this is not the way. This is not the way to do it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Evelyn Tran.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo and repeat, we have concern, my family and I, about safety and truck speeding. We also live right in the middle of two hills, and we moved in our home in September last year. And since then, twice I've had close call with the truck coming, just being right behind me while I'm just trying to exit my driveway. So, and that's only with the traffic from the strata. So not from the additional 150 that are about to happen. So, and I also wanted to, I'm confused about why would the truck need to use the south part from the whole pit all the way to Davis Drive, where it's constantly hilly and it's pretty high, like it really hide a truck, whereas the north side of McCowan up to Mount Albert is just flat. So it's our concern, and I think it's an accident to happen. The speed limit is 50, but how can we enforce someone to go at 50? Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Bernard Couples.
You're not wanting to speak this time? Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Steve and Monica Elred.
Everett?
We just signed to get the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Wen Chan.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. So I had a look at the memo, the response, and a couple of things jumped to mind. I'm just going to walk through them in no particular order.
Very good.
I mean, one of the first statements here is that the samples collected at the whole pit is for auditing purposes. And when I hear audit, the first thing that comes to mind is an audit is in place to detect failure of some other process, to detect something going wrong, something systemically wrong. But do we really want that? right? With the sampling interval that we have proposed for the audit, the only thing it's going to detect if something has gone extremely wrong in the earlier stages, right? You would have to have an enormous amount of contaminated material coming in for the audit to pick that up. So is the audit even worth anything at that point? I think, is it just purely optics? Because that kind of pops to mind when something doesn't do what it's intended to do, but is still put in place, right? The other thing I noticed was, okay, so I have to thank the author for pointing out which Ontario reg it is, because there's quite a few to dig through. When you dig through Ontario Regulation 153.4, and the first thing that comes to mind is how open the interpretation is. It's super open. There are multiple phases in your environmental assessment. Phase 1 is to kind of eyeball and determine if there's something, not right, requiring a more detailed phase 2 investigation where multiple samples are taken. But when you go and look at the kind of the threshold for phase 1, there isn't. It's not hard set except in extremely bad cases. I took a look at the reg, and you go from phase 1 to phase 2 if the land was previously used for industrial. Sure, that makes sense. If it was previously a garage, you'd have a lot of spilled oil, a lot of spilled fuel. Yeah, that makes sense. If it was used for a bulk liquid transfer facility, so someone's selling fuel, someone's selling fertilizer, whatever, or for dry cleaning, because in the past dry cleaning fluids were really, really bad for the environment. But other than that, other than these really, really obvious cases, everything's at the discretion of the qualified personnel. They basically look at the field and say, hey, that doesn't look right. Okay, let's order a phase 2. Right? If they see a drum of, half full drum sticking out of the dirt, okay, let's order a phase 2. But I know for one thing, if I go look at a field, I can't tell if it's contaminated or not just by looking at it. Sure, if I see a rotting truck there dumping automotive fluids into the ground, sure, I'll know it's dirty. But if it's just a plain looking field, that's going to look every bit the same to me as one that's clean versus one that's contaminated, right? And that's the kind of threshold that's set in Regulation 153.4. One thing that really stuck out in 153.4, and I'd have to dig up the exact section, is there's no specific sampling interval specified, right? That's left entirely at the discretion of the qualified personnel. So you got to ask yourself, if you put a test in place to detect something, how much do you dilute that test before you declare it ineffective? Right? What percentage confidence do you want to have that the test is doing as it's intended to do? Right? Is it 5%, 10%, 95%? If I went to the doctor and he said, we're going to run this test on you, and our certainty is 5%, well, I'd tell the doctor, you're nuts. Right? Like it's, at least, for my line of work and many others, the accepted criteria for tests to be effective is 95% confidence, i.e. 19 out of 20 times you run that test, it is accurate. Accurate in detecting a positive and accurate in detecting a negative. And, that's not stipulated in 153.4. It's kind of left at the discretion of, who's doing the interpretation, and that's worrying. I'd like to add also, quite a few people have expressed concern about the speeding trucks. I know this is anecdotal, but 2 weeks back, I'm going eastbound on Herald. I stop, and fortunately, I stopped at the stop sign because the dump truck just smoked the stop sign. Did not even slow down. It just went straight through as if it was a two-way. And today, on my way over, I'm going north on McCowan, and there's a sign that says, new stop sign ahead. And you look at the corner of it, it's obviously been smacked by something quite tall. Right? The new stop sign has already been damaged by a speeding vehicle, and there are very few vehicles tall enough to hit the thing. Right? Not only do you have to be going fast to not be able to avoid it, you got to be way out of your lane. Right? How far out of the lane did that trucker have to be to take out the corner of that sign? So, and I guess there were some calls for recommendations on how to address the speeding truck issue. Well, if you slap a GPS tracker on every single one of the trucks that's permitted to come to the site, and it's not the RISE group, and it's not GHD who monitors it, it's someone on council or someone in the community who has access to the data logs. And, in whatever contracts that are being put forth, put in, liquidated damages for violating some term in there that's basically saying thou shalt not go over, say, 55 in the section. And just make that all contingent on the data from the GPS trackers. Right. I mean, we can't expect the police to be there all the time. They're busy with other things. We have limited resources, whereas slapping a GPS tracker on every single truck, not only is it a deterrent, you can also review the data later on, and you know who was driving the truck that day, and you have the data log. Just saying, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is James Henry.
Welcome. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you. I originally came here to listen to all the good people. I wasn't going to talk. I moved here 10 years ago. We're on McCowan. I came for the peace and quiet. I've got a well I worry about now. Peace and quiet starts for me at 4:30 in the morning as the trucks go by. You add these other 150 coming the other way, supposedly. They mentioned why not put it to the north. Well, as of right now, the traffic we have north on McCowan starts at 4:30 in the morning. Now, I'm not sure if can they come in on the weekends also? I don't know. Your Sunday, Monday, your Saturdays and Sundays. Mainly, I guess, I'm disappointed that we're going to get this little hole filled. Preston's, we knew what was going on 10 years ago, and we're hoping sooner or later it's going to end. Now you're going to add this thing. What stops those trucks from making that right turn northbound now? What if we see them come out? Can we do anything about it? Are they going to be fined? That's it for me, guys, and thanks for everyone here.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, next speaker is Carmen Lenardi.
Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Couple of questions. I agree with many of the comments that have been made before. And just to let you know, my wife and I own that property, South Mill Road, just south of this Holt pit. We bought it a number of years ago with the intention of building our retirement home on. And so we don't live there just yet, but I can empathize with everybody in the area. We live right now in Newmark, in a suburb, and I know if I have to jaywalk across the street, I can do it with my eyes closed. And I live in a suburb, okay? I'm a visual person, and I don't know what trucks going every 2 minutes up and down McCowan Road are. And I can tell you, as I age, and we finally build our house over there, if I have to cross McCowan Road, as one of the gentlemen talked about with his children, I might not make it across the street in that 2 minute time period before I get hit by a truck. So I'm concerned about this 2 minutes interval. I mean, it'd be great to have sort of a video display saying, here's an old man crossing the street, and the old man being me, and getting hit by a dump truck. And I'm not being facetious. I'm trying to be realistic. I mean, everything happens to be numbers on here and not something that we can visually see and try to relate to. The other thing is, with our property being the south, and there's something about a radar sign. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to mean. I know many times I'm coming south on McCowan Road, trying to make a left-hand turn onto Mill Road to get onto our property, and we cannot see what comes over the hill coming north. And I don't know that this radar is going to stop anybody from slowing down. And if they're going 80 kilometers an hour, it's like a sign saying, well, you're going 80 kilometers an hour. And when I'm driving, I go, well, I'm going 80 kilometers an hour, so be it. So it's not like I don't think it's going to deter or what's the word that they use over here? It's somehow calm the traffic. If it's 80 kilometers an hour, it's 80 kilometers an hour, and that's what I'm going to end up doing. I don't suggest we put speed bumps all along McCowan Road to be able to reduce the speed. That's unrealistic. But I guess just like other members of the community, I don't know how this is going to be slowed down to a 50 kilometer an hour limit. The other comment I have is at the court, and somebody mentioned about this, the truck loads between Mount Albert and Ravenshoe. Well, I don't know why some type of analysis wasn't done between Harold Road and McCowan and Mount Albert Road. Because I know when I stop at the sign at Harold Road and Mount Albert Road, I'm wondering whether my car is going to make it off onto the side, because those barriers keep appearing like they're going to fall into the sides. And I'm worried about trucks coming up and then just deteriorating that slope and that level, and those barriers just go right into that. It looks like a tennis bubble. I think it's a tennis bubble on the east side of McCowan Road. And having those trucks going up isn't going to do much for that road over there. So I appreciate that Davis Drive and McCowan Road is going to be fixed, that we have no problem north of Mount Albert, but that intersection right there, it's going to deteriorate. And it's going to get to the point where something's going to have to be done, and probably should be done before trucks go up and down. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Your next speaker, Madam Mayor, is Mike Wilmot.
Hi there.
Good evening. Good to have you with us.
Thanks. Just to clear things up on the Monday to Friday, in number 10, they can also run on Saturdays from 7 till 7, to answer your question there. So they will be running on the weekends as well. 7,000 trucks or 7,000 car capacity for our road. It says nothing in here about the tonnage of trucks running down the road. So 7,000, that could be 7,000 Fiats. It's not 7,000 dump trucks. So let's clear that part up. Getting the road tested to find out if it's can hold that kind of weight and that amount of traffic. I think that should be done first before you guys even entertain anything at the cost of the Rice Group, if this is what they want to do. And everybody seems to forget about the railway tracks. What are you going to do about the railway tracks? So 150 trucks up and down the road, and the train goes by 10 times a day. It possibly more than that. And then sometimes it goes by that it's just creeping across the tracks, and you could sit there for 10, 15 minutes. What are you going to do with that? Right? You can't do anything. There have already been people that have been killed crossing the tracks in cars from speeding. So now throw a dump truck down the road doing the same thing. All of this stuff you have written in here, it amazes me that we come here for the second meeting and you guys don't have an answer. That's really what amazes me. We get the same thing. We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. So you haven't done your research. You haven't come with a single answer to say this is what this is and this is what this is. Right? So this whole meeting is just like the first meeting. You guys got to do your work first. You're going to pass it.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, those are all the speaker sheets that were handed in. So if there's anybody else, then we'll have to collect those yellow sheets.
Are there other people that would like to come up and speak? Did you fill out a sheet? I did. You did? Okay. Just for our
Scott
clerk's
Ray.
record, could you just give your name and your
Yeah.
address? Just
Scott
so-
Ray on McCowan, 18381. One of the points that really hasn't been brought up, I know the planner indicated that they were looking at building a left turn lane at Davis. Well, I don't think they've looked at the traffic coming westbound on Davis and what that's going to do to that intersection. There's no right turn lane going to be made out of McCowan, and traffic's going to back up there. There are times I can go out to Davis and I'm waiting 10 minutes to get on a Davis Drive to turn. The design of the road at Harold is an absolute nightmare. The stop sign, the way it is, people can't see as they come southbound, they can't see over the hill. And if there's a truck sitting at the bottom of that hill and somebody comes over the second roller coaster hill at 70 kilometers an hour, there isn't enough stopping space for that car. And what's going to happen is they're going to get killed. So that's got to be, something's got to be done. That intersection, the way it is now, it's worse with the stop sign than it was without it at this point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that did not have an opportunity to speak that would like to at this point? We have comments from staff at this time.
I have some general comments, but I think there is a lot that we heard tonight that we'd like to take back, and I think it would be prudent to again prepare a formal summary of the comments and provide some meaningful responses to those, and we can certainly bring that back to another council meeting.
There's many questions that will be easily answered, and there'll be other questions that of technical nature that will take more. In listening to Mr. Molinari, we will have another meeting with the answers. Those that have filled out the sheets, then we can certainly be corresponding with you as well. I know that there was a lady that has a petition. Would you like to turn it over to the clerk so he has it in the official record? Did you want to speak? You came up to the front after we...
I did.
I want to make sure that everybody that's
Yes.
here has an opportunity to speak if they wish to.
My name is Alison Firth, and I live at 17734 McCowan. So I am in between Harold and Davis Drive. I think one of the things that hasn't been spoken enough about is the safety of our road. We all know how quickly these existing trucks go. In fact, I have a thing outside on my street right now that says how fast you're going, and I can see it from my kitchen window. And the speed limit is 50, and it's never 50. And my neighbor and I find urine bottles, or water bottles. These people are in a hurry, these truckers. And we're now sort of about to introduce a whole bunch more of them. And I don't know how I can put two kids out at the end of the driveway with all of this going on. You are proposing to sort of destroy a country road here, literally and physically. So please think about the safety. I can't walk my dog.
This is insane.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, everyone that wanted to speak, I believe, has spoken.
Could I please continue? I panicked a little, and I have one more statement.
You panicked.
I did.
Well, we don't want that.
Okay.
Come up to the microphone.
Okay, thank you. All right, my other statement I wanted to make was, have you guys considered the value of our properties? Okay, we've all invested a huge amount of money into our properties. And if this goes ahead, our roads will be destroyed. We cannot be entirely sure if the soil that they are putting into this pit is contaminated. So in the future, our wells could be destroyed as well. Our children could be drinking bad water. People have invested their livelihoods into these properties. I know, having spoken to a lot of the residents, that some of these people are using it as their retirement fund. They plan on the next few years on selling their properties. And what you guys may do will reduce the value of their properties. You're taking away from their retirement. People have just bought their houses. They're just moving in, they're doing their renovation, they're trying to make their dream home come true. And the property values are going to go down. And that was my final statement. So I will hand in our petition. We have had over 50 residents sign it. I can guarantee that I have spoken to at least 80 to 90% of the residents. Only one person has said that they would like this to go ahead, and the rest of us have emphatically said no. Okay, 51. So I will give it to the clerk after. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Something new?
My name is Kia. I live on 18359 McCowan Road. Evelyn is my wife. Before we move into 18359, we know strata truck, but I didn't really think about it, like safety and stuff like that. We experience it. So we just live just north of Harrow Road and south of Strata. That hill is a very very short, steep hill. And any decision you made, I encourage any counselor should come visit the site before you decide it. Because for me, it's most concerned me is the safety. Every time we go on the driveway, from the driveway to the road, the truck is very heavy. I noted, even I have the video a couple of times from Strata. The truck very heavy. You just hope the truck see you coming out, because maybe they can see you, but we cannot depend on the truck to see you and he can stop, but because that hill is so short. Even he responds very quickly, he right behind your back already. So that a chance I don't want to take. So if we're not proactive to do anything, now if it happened to some of us, it did the record. If it happened and later on down the road, oh, I feel sorry for that family, or I feel sorry for that person, it's too late, let's do something safer. Now we come here, we just give you a head up to study more carefully and then decide it. And everyone can come visit the site before. I know the race group, of course, every time we present everything is very green, very good, very nice. But on the other hand, we don't see the hitting of it. So now only the residents try to make the time to come here, try to make the point. But I heard the same story go over and over again. Every meeting I heard the same thing. And I encourage the city council should go to the site and visit, and let's see that we say that makes sense or not. And I don't have a lot of words to say, but I encourage everyone to come and visit it, and then to see how we make this safe for the resident. And the road, and a lot of hill and a lot of tree on both sides, no way you can see you get out from your driveway. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dr. Julie Jonas, and I live at 17781 McCowan Road.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that have already been alluded to a little bit, but one of them being the new ownership and the people who have invested a lot into these properties. So speaking for our family, we just moved in there in 2017. So, maybe it was part of our due diligence that we didn't, record how many trucks were currently going down that road. It was of great disappointment to us when we did find out that that was a very regular truck route, and our house is fairly close to the road. So yes, you can hear everything. What we did take into consideration was the railroad tracks. So at that time, I had called CN to find out how many trains went by every day. And I was astonished to find out that it's at least 25 trains a day. And that's, so you would estimate, 1 an hour or more. It's a lot more frequent than that. And so this was something that we took into consideration. We weighed it. It was a big deal. Who wants a train, that close to your house? We're, 5, 6 houses down from the train tracks. And in the building of our house 2 years ago, we soundproofed everything, especially in our bedroom, trying to minimize that. Well, we did physically and materially everything that we could to soundproof our house from the train. It doesn't work, right? I mean, you would know this if you try it. It doesn't work. We can hear the train, of course, in the middle of the night. We triple pane windows. You can hear the trucks that go by every day, and that's at the current volume. So that's part of my consideration of this issue of noise pollution, of course, and people who chose to live in a rural location. In just reading over this briefly, this memo that we've covered, I'm looking at number 5, which says, has existing truck traffic been considered? And what I'm seeing here is that it's based on a survey from 2018, May 2018. Because I'm fairly new to the community, I don't know if anyone can tell me, when did the switch to Strata happen? And so approximately around this time? And did the volume increase when it went to Strata? Significantly. So what I'm wondering here is, was this survey done prior to the Strata acquisition and is therefore maybe inaccurate now? And even given this data that was recorded in 2018, it says that the existing traffic data, currently trucks represent approximately 18% of the vehicles on McCowan Road. That's quite a bit, for a rural country road. Now, let's say that's outdated data, how much more would that actually be currently that we're putting up with? And I would actually like to know, would 18% of the vehicles equals how many trucks? And let's add the 150 to 200 trucks on there and tell me what percentage of vehicles that travel along McCowan Road are now commercial, right? This is a agricultural, tractors are going by all the time, family rural road. It's not a commercial road. So I would like you to take those things into consideration. My final question is, when will council make a decision? I'm actually surprised that the last time we were here was in November and October, and it's now middle to end of February. And what has really been done since now and then? I mean, how long is it going to take to make the final decision? And this is something that I think we should really be made aware of.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Molinari may wish to comment further, but what I can indicate at this point is what I think is most important is that we take not only the comments that we heard at the last meeting, but the numerous comments, perspectives, and questions that we heard this evening. I heard a reference to the fact that some folks were not satisfied with the type of information that was provided in response to the last set of comments. So I think it's imperative that we make sure that we do a great job getting the information that folks are asking for and that we answer those questions appropriately so that not only the members of the public have the information they need, but the council has the information it needs to make an informed choice. So I would suggest to you that our objective will be not to do this quickly, but to do it properly. So I cannot give you an exact time when we will come back, but we'll make sure that that we do that as expeditiously as we can, but that we don't compromise on doing it thoroughly. And we'll be advising council and the public well before the time that we would come back to another council meeting so that all folks that are interested in this matter can participate.
Yes, go ahead.
like to know.
Could you come up to the microphone, please?
Interested in knowing who negotiated the expiration of the Mount Albert access road, and why did it fail, and why did it fail? Who did the negotiations to bring the trucks in from the Mount Albert side road? I mean, those folks, if they rented an access road, they could be living in the Bahamas for the next 8 years. Why was that shelved? I mean, it's a main road. Mount Albert's a main road. There's lots of land at the back of the fields. An access road would have been so convenient and safe. There's only 2 buildings that would have been annoyed by the noise of the trucks. Not only will the trucks be coming in, there'll be a constant noise for the equipment to move the fill around constantly. I mean, when the trucks are not there, the mover will be there moving the fill around. The access road at the back, it should have been expropriated. And you know, in normal circumstances, if you were a big, large builder, you would commission an expropriation of land, access land. Why did it fail? I mean, yes, the people couldn't agree on a price. I mean, surely there's enough money in the fill revenue for that. It's just a wrong decision to go up a residential road. There's a catastrophe in the making.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, seeing no other speakers, I guess just a couple of comments from myself in that this is not an easy decision for council, as you can well imagine. This is a decision that we are not going to make lightly. Tonight, once again, we have heard questions that we have not heard in the past, and until we have all of the answers, we will not be making a decision, as Mr. Velchik has indicated. We have all of your names and how to contact you to let you know that we will be having another meeting and making sure that those issues that we have heard tonight or those that there's been answers from previous, that they will be answered before any decision is going to be made. It's as Mr. Velchik has said, we are not going to rush this and compromise a decision. So with that, I have two motions here to be received. And unless there's any other comments, you're standing up. Did you have another comment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm looking out and I'm seeing a lot of husbands and wives. I'm widowed because my wife was killed by a truck on Mount Albert side road in Kennedy 10 years ago. And I don't want to see anybody else here have to go through what I went through. That's a regional road, okay? And it's in much better shape, and they made a lot of improvements. It was right at the corner of Kennedy and Mount Albert, and my life's been destroyed. I don't have the little kids to go to the bus to because of a 5-ton straight truck. You know, I've been through hell, and I need for you to know that there is real people that live on this road, and I don't want anyone else. I don't want to have to come over and say, hey, brother, I know what you're going through. Okay, please, I needed to say that.
Everybody. Takes a lot of courage. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
It's a very easy decision. You put people and their children or corporate greed. It's that easy. Don't tell us it's a hard decision. It's our community. That's appalling. It's a very simple solution.
Thank you very much. At this point, I have a resolution, be it resolved that Community Infrastructure Environmental Services Memorandum dated April 19th, 2020, entitled Former Overholt Pit Site Alteration Proposed Timing 18725 McCowan Road be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Persichini, all those in favor? And that's carried. The second one, be it resolved that the comments regarding the 18725 McCowan Road Overholt Pit Commercial Fill Permit application submitted by Rice Group Commercial Group be received. I have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Crothers, Councillor Foster, all those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the second public meeting at this time. We'll take about a 10-minute break. Thank you. We'll resume our meeting starting on page 19 on our agenda, public meeting D. And I will turn it over to staff to make some comments to start with, and then we'll proceed through our agenda.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The memo before you this evening was really to provide a summary of comments that were heard at the public meeting that we held on this matter January 21st. And just going back a little further, we had a public information session was held with the applicant in attendance, and he presented his proposal back on January 13th. And then we did report back on January 21st, and there's a full report that summarized the comments that we received to date. We committed to coming back for an additional public meeting this evening. The memo before you again summarizes some of the additional comments and concerns we heard from members of the public. And now I think at this point, it's another opportunity for members of the public to express their comments and concerns related to, or any questions they may have related to the application. Madam Mayor, and I think we do have 4 or 5 residents who want to speak on the matter this evening. So I think we can turn it over to the public.
Thank you. And the comments of the applicant. Is the applicant going to make comments tonight?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the applicant is here in attendance, and he indicated that he doesn't have a presentation, but he is certainly willing to answer any questions if members of council have any direct questions for the applicant.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will move to comments from the members of public. And I believe we have a few who filled out orange forms. If you haven't filled out one and you want to, then by all means, go ahead and do so. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, first speaker is Ed Stark.
Good evening. Good to have you here.
I feel it's like old home week.
It is.
Very pleased to be here. We do have some very brief comments regarding the staff report that's been provided on this issue. Our basic comment is that we are extremely unhappy that this item has been included as a public meeting yet again, rather than a final report and recommendations. There have been numerous public meetings, as Marco has just been mentioning, at which council has fully heard the views of all key stakeholders. Staff, previous deputations, and others have provided several previous reports and submissions fully explaining the issue so that council is well educated on the matter and is in a strong position to make a decision. At the January 21st meeting of council, the mayor herself made a particular point of selecting a time and date, which was today, which would enable the public to attend after work to be present when council fully discusses and reaches a final decision on the matter. And we actually checked the video streaming, and it was yourself who said she was hoping to make this in the evening so that we could watch the decision being made. I actually won't read the rest. I just want to know what changed. Why is this a public meeting? That's my number one question. And then near the bottom, in the staff report, it talked about fiber optics coming to the area. So we did contact YorkNet, the fiber optic company, today. We were told that they are in the early stages of bringing it down Woodbine, and they have no intentions of extending service along Holborn. They indicated it'll be some time until this installation is complete, well beyond 2020. Further, a service provider would have to bring it in, and the cost is $80 per meter. This is prohibitive. There's a further cost to extend the service to each home. It's unclear to us how this is going to be economically viable and how long this might take. From our view, a far superior solution is a solution we suggested in our previous deposition, to immediately relocate the tower to an acceptable location outside of our residential neighborhood. If necessary, a well-located tower could be higher than the Fairbairn Gate Tower to ensure a proper signal, which could potentially reach more homes than the Fairbairn Gate Tower. A tower is in the order of $20,000, whereas fiber optics would be at least 10 times this amount. We believe strongly that this is a solution that would most benefit the entire community at an affordable cost. Otherwise, we are facing years more of dealing with all the negative impacts of this tower on our neighborhood. In fact, if this tower stays, the owner could expand the height of the existing tower by 25% without going through Industry Canada approval, causing even greater negative impact. So our basic point is, why not make the decision today? What more information, what more positions can you hear? We've all said our piece. Why is this being dragged out? And why is your planner saying that we were advised that tonight was an additional public meeting when the mayor herself said it was the night to make the decision? I wouldn't mind an answer.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not sure, do we have someone who can provide an answer at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly I could respond. I think considering the comments we received, we thought it was prudent to provide council with a summary of what we heard to date, and also provide council with a number of options for consideration prior to making a final decision. And I've outlined those in the reports. Essentially, there are two options. The one has a number of conditions, but there are a number of questions that we still feel deserve to be answered, and we are working to try and provide council with all the information and answers to all the questions that have been raised by some of the residents. And as we listed in our report, the next steps are we feel we can bring a final report back to council at a future committee of the whole meeting, and we are continuing to work with the community and the broadband committee with respect to that being an option. And I think we may have some additional information for council with respect to the potential timing for fiber optics to the area.
Well, if I may, with all due respect, this is very up in the air. We're told there could be a report coming at some future date. We were told today would be the decision, and there's no decision. What confidence are we to have in this council that the matter will be dealt with? It's just being pushed and pushed. We don't understand.
Might I suggest that March the 3rd is our next council meeting, and we should be looking at a decision at that point?
To you, Madam Mayor, yes, we can definitely have a final report for council's consideration at the March 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting.
Mr. Veltman.
Madam Mayor, just for clarity, if we bring a report back, and we certainly can make a commitment to do that to the first meeting in March of committee, then that would, unless there's a decision to deal with it that afternoon at council, that would go to the second meeting in March, the evening council meeting, for final ratification of those recommendations.
Good. Good.
Okay.
I was just going to say, can we rely on that being the course of action?
This is a very complicated issue. And as I spoke earlier, we want to make the right decision. If anyone on this council does not have enough information, then we're going to wait until they do. And my information was that some people needed more information. So I can tell you that March the 3rd, we expect to be back here. Staff are saying that we will have the information that we need at that time.
All right. Well, we really look forward to that meeting.
Unfortunately, it's a daytime, and that was why I had indicated the one for tonight, as opposed to moving beyond that.
And I would just say we actually changed our vacation plans at the cost of $450, I might add it, so that we could be here to see the decision being made, which is just another little sidebar about why this is so disappointing.
My apologies, but sometimes things just don't work out after we're finished in the council chamber. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The next speaker is Jonathan Macri.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Next speaker is Terry Russell, Broadband Committee, Working Committee Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Russell. Good to have you with us tonight.
Madam Mayor, members of council, members of staff, ladies and gentlemen. As just introduced, I'm the chair of the Broadband Committee. And this is our first report to council. Give you a little bit of history and then tell you what we're trying to do and what we have been doing. And maybe, Mr. Starr, this will help you a little bit as well. The Broadband Working Committee was formed in the spring of 2019 as a subgroup of the Economic Development Committee. We got a slow start. We originally had 6 members. We were down to 3 because 3 folks decided this wasn't for them. And since then, we've added back 4 quality members. So we have a very fine working committee of business people with knowledge of this business on our committee. Plus, we have Councillor Crone as our council liaison, and Margo and AJ from staff. We're doing a great job trying to help us. So we had to decide what it is we needed to do for the town. Many of us have been hollering for years and years that we need better broadband and better telecom in the community, but how do you go about it, particularly when you have some areas with density, but most areas that are rural and don't meet the business plans of Bell or Rogers in terms of doing stuff. So that's always an issue. So we came up with a mission, and our mission was to guide the town of East Gwillimbury to facilitate ultra high-speed broadband to industrial, residential, and government customers in the greater EG area. So we're trying to cover everything, and also as we go forward, try to come up with the right solutions and get the right people involved as we develop our business parks and so on. So the next thing we did was try to put together a strategic and strategy action plan for our committee to use to move forward and to guide us in what we needed to do. So our first task was to establish who the players that we want to talk to were in terms of what they had to offer, what they planned to offer, and so on, and then try to pull these pieces together to see how that affected overall the town. So we decided the people we needed to talk to were Bell, Rogers, Vianet, Rural Wave, FiberSpeed, YorkNet, Clear Cable, and Envy Networks, which is the new market-owned broadband company that was set up, and also ExploreNet. So we devised a series of questions to ask each of them in order to gather uniform information in terms of what they plan to do and when they plan to do it. Because quite frankly, before that, we as a community didn't know. So far, we have met with all of them at least once, with the exception of Rogers and ExploreNet. And we talked about this meeting, but we may need some help to get Rogers to pay attention to us, because quite frankly, we need both of the 2 big players, Bell and Rogers, to talk to us. So as we move forward, we're starting to get a better picture of what is needed and what will happen along the way. And the good news is we're in a better shape than we thought. So for example, I don't want my sense of humor to take place here, but I don't want people working with fake news. So for example, you get information, but it's only half correct. YorkNet aren't going to provide fiber along the road, but that's not their job. They're an infrastructure folks. So if they told you they're not going to do it, they're not. But that doesn't mean that someone else isn't going to lease the lines from them to be able to do that. So in our discussions, we found that a number of the providers, ISPs, are quite willing to look at the situation, and that's one of them that they want to look at. So we've asked them, what do they need from us to be able to move more quickly? And one of the things that they've asked for, or many of the things, is trying to get competitors or people in the same business to work together, which we've offered to help do, and also to get the town and the region to move more responsively and quickly to their needs. And I must say, since we got that feedback from a number of these ISPs, the town has done a very fine job in terms of moving forward, moving more quickly, speeding the process for permits and approvals, which has got a couple of them looking at being able to do things sooner rather than later. So I can't talk about the specifics about where they want to, or where they're going to put coverage first and exactly when, because that's confidential information. However, we're not looking at years out. We're not looking at a great length of time. And if the stars align, then there's a good chance that some of the areas that are particularly ill affected could be up and running with a proper system available in the short run, which means before the end of this year. I don't want to commit that, because there's always Murphy's Law, that things could be as ready by the end of September. But certainly within this year, which kind of makes the decision that council has to make a little bit more difficult, because, you know, Mr. Starr was saying he's got to move towers, there's a cost to be had there and so on. And then what happens that you do that, and then within the next few weeks or months, you've got high-class, high-grade fiber broadband at your doorstep. So that's what we hope will happen. We think it can. And what we're trying to do is get all the people together, partners together, because the list that I gave you are not only ISPs. I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but that's the people that provide you with the service, send you the bill, look after your stuff, and so on. YorkNet is simply an infrastructure provider which sells off their fiber to other people, okay? Bell and Rogers are complete suppliers. They do everything, okay? But they're also harder to make things move. So you need the flexibility. And also, in our particular area, again, because of the size, because of the trees and everything else, fiber is not the answer everywhere. So there's going to be, at least in the short term, some wireless solutions as well. And there's also, we're finding that there is wireless solutions out there that have just been put in, which really haven't been advertised yet, which may help some people. So anyway, that's where we stand today. As we go forward, we're trying to take the big picture, work with the town staff and everybody else to get a total picture of what we have, because then when we're through, we want to make sure we haven't missed anything, because the last thing we want to do is when this exercise is over and done, we find out that we've missed a piece of the pie, and there's 500 homes or 500 people in the community that still don't have broadband, and we're having this discussion with somebody else. So that's what I can tell you at this point in time, and I can tell you that we are working very hard to do this. Before I end, though, I would like to acknowledge the members of our committee, most of which are here today, and if I get it, I'll call them out, and those that are here, if they would stand, be acknowledged, I'd appreciate it. Stéphane Deschênes, Jamie Murphy, Harold Wagner, George Shriver, Rob Schutze, and he was here earlier, but Bob Kyriakides, and I've massacred his name again, but sorry, Bob. And also Colin Tucker, who's enjoying the sun of Florida at the moment, but he's not here. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Questions from members of council? You've said it all, apparently.
Painless. Thank you.
I congratulate you and your members of committee. I know that you were wanting to get moving a lot faster, much quicker, but you are moving along to a speed that I'm confident that whether it's this issue or other issues that we have in broadband, because it's just the tip of the iceberg, that we have people that are committed and competent to help us make decisions. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Councillor Crone.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, through you, just to give a special thanks of gratitude to Mr. Russell for his leadership on the committee. He's spending a great deal of time, of his spare time in doing this, and it is appreciated. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, go ahead.
Through Madam Mayor, there's one more speaker, Tom Horsley.
Good evening. Good to have you with us.
Oh, so good to see you again. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and town staff. I am bringing forth new information and feedback. Sadly, I just recently heard about some of the completely unexpected and very unfortunate side effects of Mr. Smith's tower. For public record, I'm a rural East Gwillimbury resident, but not living in or nearby the Fairbairn Gate community. Before I get started, I would like to remind everyone that myself and other concerned residents of Fairbairn Gate are not against people having internet. Rather, it is the inappropriate location of the tower in a residential neighborhood. We have been on record as noting that we are sympathetic and understanding to the issues surrounding internet infrastructure. And now for the unexpected side effects. This morning, a neighbor of Mr. Smith sent me an informative and shocking email. This is how things have changed for the worse for the neighbors since they expressed their concerns over the tower. The neighbor has said, "We used to spend time outside and talk with our fellow neighbors, and now it feels as if we are being avoided like the plague. No one waves from their cars or stops to talk. My 3 boys used to take the school bus to school, but I had to start driving them because of other children whose families are in favor of the tower started to give us the finger and give dirty looks, making my kids feel uncomfortable. Recently, we had an upgrade our home security system because we are afraid of things escalating to a trespassing issue. There's been a lot of strange activity on the street, with this becoming such a public issue. Mr. Morphy's partner has come to my property to photograph my home, and when she was questioned, she gave not so nice hand gesture. Thankfully, we have cameras to document all of this activity. While everyone else seems to benefit of high speed of internet without any negative impacts, the surrounding residents have to deal with the consequences. How is that fair? I spoke with another neighbor of Mr. Smith today who also expressed concerns about the tower. They too are receiving similar treatment. Sadly, this is not the first time they have encountered harassment from other residents for speaking up about concerns. At their previous residence in King Township, a group of teenagers were illegally riding motorized dirt bikes through the neighborhood, driving over various property owners' properties, and trespassing on a neighboring undeveloped property to ride their dirt bikes. The police and Township of King were attempted to stop the bikers, but to no avail. As a result of complaining to the township and the police about the issue, they were victims of vandalism for 4 years. Incidents included several eggings of their home, garden being set on fire, blood smeared on the front door, and bottles thrown and smashed on the driveway. Very sad. The neighbor mentioned that they moved to Fairbairn Gate in the expectation of living in a peaceful and attractive neighborhood, only to find themselves again subject to community conflict when all they are trying to do is obey the law and expect others to do likewise. If the tower were allowed to stay until alternative fiber hookup is available, it would be sending a message that it's okay to set up towers and other inappropriate locations within East Gwillimbury, and thus going through the same process yet again. I have excellent neighbors, and we have a very good neighborly relationship. I'd hate to see a tower pop up in my neighborhood or someone else's neighborhood and cause the same destructive divide in the community, as well as the potential harassment that ensues to those who oppose inappropriately located towers of the magnitude of Mr. Smith's. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Good evening. Could you give your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name is Andre. I live at 18 Fairbairn. I'm next door neighbor to Mr. Smith. So again, I'm listening to all this. Mr. Starr is one of our speakers that speaks for the group. So as I am also very disappointed that this is not coming to a resolution right away. I'm really hoping that we don't spend another summer looking at this eyesore. The point that I want to make tonight is the same point that I made last week. The direct neighbors that are living next to this thing. I respect all the comments have been made that they're trying to get broadband and all this, but none of these people are living next to this. We are. So it's our problem, it's our concern, it's our environment that's being disturbed. So now I got to spend another summer looking at this eyesore. And again, as Tom just mentioned, we go out on the street, we used to wave to neighbors and everything. Now we're getting the cold shoulders, we're getting the stink eye. It's unfortunate. I know who he's talking about that's getting the finger, which I find terrible. My point tonight is this. This is not about internet. This is about a tower that is providing internet. The internet can be brought in the neighborhood, either by fiber, by the tower being on a proper property, wherever you decide to put it. This is about a tower that is erected in a beautiful neighborhood that wasn't legally put up there through the proper process. And all we're asking is that a decision be made that will satisfy everyone. And as quickly as possible, because I can just see it now. What's going to happen is it's going to get pushed. There's going to be a decision made. Hopefully you'll take some of our concerns, because I don't think waiting for fiber is the answer here. Because fiber can take a year, 2 years. I appreciate the gentleman's comments, but I can guarantee you if I ask him if he's got a written contract that they're going to do this year, I'll guarantee you he's going to say no. So that means it could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 10 years from now before fiber gets into our neighborhood. I don't think it's fair for us to live with this tower for 10 years. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, first off, could I have a mover and a seconder? Be it resolved that the comments regarding the 14 Fairbairn Gate Telecommunication Tower application be received. Councillor Crone, Councillor Crothers, all those in favor, and that's carried. And the second one is be it resolved that Joint Development Services, Legal and Council Support Services and Corporate Services Memorandum dated February 19th, 2020, entitled 14 Fairbairn Gate Telecommunication Tower application be received. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Persicini, Councillor Morton, all those in favor, and that's carried. At this time, without any other comments, we have heard from our planner that we will be back here on March the 3rd for a decision. And so with that, we will move along to the rest of our agenda at this time. Thank you very much for coming. Take just a 2-minute while people are exiting the chambers. Do you want to say anything?
You refer to a decision. I just want to make sure there's no misunderstanding on the part of the public or the viewers that that would be committee making a recommendation, and unless there's a choice to go to council that day, the council decision would be at the second meeting in March, which would, I believe, be the 24th.
24th, yes. Thank you. For ratification. Thank you. Okay, moving along on our agenda, item E is presentations. I have none listed here. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item F is deputations. I have no deputations listed. Is that correct?
Also correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm at item G, committee recommendations, and the resolution be it resolved that council adopt the committee of the whole recommendations from the meeting held on February 4th, 2020. That's pages 22 to 25. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Persicini, Councillor Morton, all those in favor, and that's carried. Our next item is adoption of minutes. And we have, yes.
Madam Mayor, we do have one recommendation from earlier today, Committee of the Whole. We'll put it up on the screen for you.
Thank you.
It's with regards to the CIS report regarding midday crossing guard services provisions at Queensville Public School and Roper Munch Public School.
Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Morton, Councillor Foster, all those in favor?
Thank you.
And that's carried. Thank you very much. The minutes to adopt are pages 26 to 51. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Roy DeClemente, seconded by Councillor Crothers. All those in favor, and that's carried. All four. Item I is correspondence for consideration. The first one we have is from the Honourable S. Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And it is regarding the forecast review for the implementation of a Place to Grow framework. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Persicini, Councillor Crone. Any questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 2 is correspondence from J. Amato Gucce, Race Route Director, Mount Albert 5K Run Walk Committee, requesting a bylaw to prohibit traffic through the street. And that is on Saturday, June 6, 2020 from 8 to 10 a.m. Moved by Councillor Crone, seconded by Councillor Morton. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have one report, and that is regarding the establish procedures for the sale of real estate property owned by the municipality. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Persicini, Councillor Roy DeClemente, all those in favor, and that's carried. We have no resolutions at this time. We are at bylaws. I have 2 bylaws listed in front of us today. Could I have a mover for both bylaws, unless you would like them split out? Councillor Roy DeClemente is moving. Second is Councillor Foster. All those in favor? And that's carried. Other business at this time? Seeing none, we have a confirming bylaw. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton, Councillor Crone, all those in favor, and that's carried. And an adjournment at 8:57, moved by Councillor Crothers,